So learning to understand like, oh, there's some programming running in me all the time. Well, that's energy in a nutshell. That's
Yeah.
energy in your
Yeah.
body. And learning to identify that and then work with it is how we bring that to the functional level, the level that we work with, in society.
Welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn. Today, I'm sitting down with a friend, Carla Fanciullo. She's an energy medicine practitioner and coach. Carla, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
Are you beaming in from a home office at your place?
I am. This is my home office. I do a few things because I also work outside of the home a little bit too. So, but this is where I like to work, in my nice bright room.
I love it. Beautiful. I would love to start off by building some context, as we always do on the Lifestyle Podcast here. Where'd you grow up, Carla?
I grew up in San Jose, California, Almaden Valley to be specific, if you've ever been a wine drinker.
Okay.
Almaden Valley.
Awesome. And what's the concise, journey from there into Colorado?
It's kind of interesting. I went to a vocational school out of high school so I could work like right away.
Yes.
Because I really needed to move out of my home. And I worked for a little while, and then a friend's like, I'm going to school in Gunnison, Colorado. I need a ride home to there after Thanksgiving. Do you want to take me? And I was like, sure, I'll take you. I was going to go to Yosemite and ski, but I drove to Gunnison and started my journey there.
No kidding.
Which has been really fun because I've watched this county grow since 1977.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what got me here.
Yeah, there's been some significant changes since 77.
Yes, there has. But it's been a wonderful place to be. And I think, I grew up in suburbia on the golf course.
Good.
And I was always attracted to like this whole vast mountainous nature area. And, I had to learn to get used to it and be comfortable with it. And of course, my husband has been really instrumental in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been drawn to it. And it's now becoming so embodied in me how important it is for us to have that connection to nature and Mother Earth and the frequencies and things like that. So yeah, it's fun to look back on that and see I was always meant to probably come here.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so you've piqued my curiosities a bit. And, we've sat, just for context for the listeners, we've sat together in NEP ceremonies. And when I'm reviewing some of the previous conversations, your website, and this idea of energy medicine practitioner and coach, when did this, I don't know if it's a superpower for you or skill set, but when did this start opening up? What were some of the components in this journey from California to Colorado that sparked this awareness, realization, skill set?
Right. I've really started the energy medicine practitioner in the 2000s. But when I look back and recall about my life, I started studying yoga as soon as I was out of college in 1987. And I think that was my first dive into energy, even though at that point in time, I maybe didn't realize that. I looked at it so much as a physical modality, um, and practiced it and have known that when I'm always practicing yoga, I feel better. And I always tried to bring that into my practice as an occupational therapist for other people. I really focused on that physical element, along with the breathing and things like that. When I got involved in the Mortar Institute, which is, where my certification from energy medicine practitioner is from, that opened up a whole nother world of yoga and the element of connecting with energy and the cosmos and even the subconscious. So it's been there for quite a long time, and it's just been this evolution up until where it is now.
Yes, yes. I would imagine you believe that everything is energy.
Everything is energy,
Everything is
including you
energy.
and me.
That's right. And when I think of energy, I think of waves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is there another way that you think of energy?
Well, I think the waves are nice. I know that, I don't know if you can see my picture, but when we talk about energy, I think of two things. I first think of the unified field, right, where everything's connected.
Yes, yes.
And you spoke of us sitting in a nipi together, and I love to do my energy work with Dr. Sue Mortar and then go into a nipi and look at the lodge and see how everything's interconnected. And
Yeah.
it's just such a great metaphor for that. But the energies, yes, we talk a lot about how everything is energy, and we compress and we compress and we compress and we compress until we are material. We're material matter, right? And each of those compressions has a field, right? That is kind of around us. You will hear that in yoga. You will hear that with energy medicine practitioners.
That's it.
And I can't always say I pull them off the top of my head right away, but I know that the first compression is that of love.
Yeah.
So that's been just a really beautiful discovery for me, and working and moving from there.
Beautiful. How would you define love?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. Um, let me answer it this way, because this is what I've been practicing myself with my mentors,
Yes, yes.
is how does love feel in your body, right? Because I'm working on this embodiment, like getting everything out of my head and really feeling it in my body. And maybe I'll just tell you a story and use an example. Because I have been working on, the chakras and each of their energy. And of course, the heart chakra, our fourth chakra, is love. And how do I feel that in my body? So I'm walking along the other day in nature in wilderness streams where we get to go. And I came over the rise where I could see the vastness of the castles.
Yeah.
And I got this feeling in my body that was just like, oh, I'm so happy.
Yes,
And in my solar plexus, I had all this tingling, and, like that was it. It was like, oh, I feel it. It's in my body. And I love that. So, I'm learning to move away from just the concept of romantic love or family love, but a love that's, a kind of unified and all encompassing, and, from the cosmos and from the earth, I'm feeling it in my body and noticing what that feels like. And then trying to hold on to that feeling as I walk forward in the world and do my life, right? And it's one thing when you study all the time, which I'm very good at, but now, walking forward in the world, it's like, can I hold on to that feeling that's in my body that allows me to say, I'm moving from love, so I kind of accept you where you are and what you're going through, and hope that I can meet you there and be a presence that, isn't conflictual or just supports you. And
And
how's that for an answer?
love it. When working with your clients, how do we bring in the energy component, the stuff that we can't really see, it's not really tangible, with business, with money, with some of this that is a little bit more tangible? How do you
I
how do
think
we
that's
bridge?
a really great question. And really a lot of the basis of the energy medicine work, because it really is all about, taking what we know, but moving it out of our heads and moving it into our body, which we're kind of phrasing as embodiment, right? So I feel like we all have hidden programming around the concepts of money, right? And you can think about, different kinds of money. You have savings, you have debt, you have income. Um, sometimes you have toxic money. Um, and, we have emotions around that. We have program beliefs around that. We might have trauma around some of those things. So when I sit with people, and I could do that with you a little bit, if I just asked you to, just sit there, be calm in your body and take a few breaths. And I asked you to think about your savings. Like, think about your savings and then just notice what comes up for you. Like, does something happen in your body? Do you have a thought that comes up? I think about savings and I think about this particular thing,
And
right? Then we're moving into what you're really feeling. What's the energy about? I'm not just in my head, I have this much in my bank account, but I start to really feel something connected to that word or that concept. And then I move from there. And that may be positive for some people. That may be negative for some people. Like, I can never have a savings account. It never works for me. And then we move into where you're feeling it in the body. And then from that point, I take it to, I want to say intuitive, that intuitive level. Where is it hitting you? Is it low in your body? Is it first chakra energy? Is it second chakra energy? Is it third? Is it fourth? I usually work with those the most.
this is
So, learning to understand, like, oh, there's some programming running in me all the time. Well, that's energy. In a nutshell, that's
yeah,
energy in your
yeah,
body. And learning to identify that and then work with it is how we bring that to the functional level, the level that we work with, in society.
yeah.
Makes sense?
It makes a little sense. Let me see if I can regurgitate some of this, and I'll throw
Okay.
in some of my own beliefs. But basically, for the listener, what I'm hearing is, if we do take it from the perspective that everything's energy, then our thoughts are energy, and how we make meaning over whatever it is we see, our bank account, that in essence drives a an experience, really. And that experience, we're going to again make meaning of whether it's good or bad or whatever. And that awareness of how we believe in it actually gives us insights that we can then tweak if we want.
Right. Right. Well, maybe an example. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Let's see how this comes out for me. So, if, for instance, I'm going to stick with savings because that's, for some reason, a good one that comes out of me. But if, for instance, when I ask somebody, to tune into themselves, what they think about, when they think about savings, what happens for them. It's like, oh, I feel some real discomfort in my gut, but I have a story that comes up for me about, maybe there was always fighting in my house because we never had enough money. We never had enough savings. That is making that sympathetic nervous system fly, like fight,
Yes.
flight, freeze, right? So that's in there, and that's probably, a program belief or a subconscious feeling. But then I point out, can you see that every time you think about your savings, your body goes into this energetic field of fight, flight, or freeze? So you're never going to want to pay attention. You're not going to know how to make it better because you're going to be in this energetic of, fight, flight, or freeze. And so when you're there, you're never in your creative essence, versus when you step into your calmness, learning to, have the divine move within you because we're energy beings. Then that's when all your creative genius comes out and you think of ways to be more of a creator around your savings. So that's like some of the verbiage and dialogue that I use to help people kind of get out of their minds, feel it in their body, deal with it. Of course, I tap and I do breath work and all these things. And then we come back and we can be more creative in things that will help them identify, why can't I break my glass ceiling of my income? Or why can't I ever pay off my debt? Things like that.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is doing this work in order to open up creativity versus reacting.
Yes.
Like a reaction is simply that based on whatever programming we may have developed over the years.
Right.
Like something
right.
happens, we have a meaning, we're reacting versus.
And I think if I can add to that, when you said that reaction, I think about we react because we have this energy running through our body that maybe we're not aware of, because who talks about bringing awareness to the energy in your body? It's just like, we're not sure. And so then we have this reaction, but then you start to learn to identify your energy field, to work with your energy field. And then you feel that and you get to a point where it's like, okay, I don't have to react to this, or I'll react, but I can catch myself. And that's something that happened to me yesterday, and it was like, oh, I know why I'm reacting to this. And then I got to use my tools and kind of calm myself down, and it was great. And I moved forward, and I was really, really happy that it all worked, like all the personal development and energy that you study. And it was like, wow, I used it and it worked in real life, and it made me really happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we react because we have those feelings running through our body and we're not aware of them or how to identify them or how to manage them.
What would be some practical components? You just referenced having tools that you accessed. What might be one or two that we can seed out in this conversation? Give some practical tools for listeners that may be aware of that reaction. Like that's one of the first steps, right? And I would encourage any listener, if you look at any A player, they always have some coach around them. And I think it's in part so that they can see what they can't see. And a real honest coach is going to be bringing forth that stuff, which, my coach talks to me all the time, and he brings forth stuff that I do not see. Yeah, and that's a powerful thing. And as soon as we can see it, then we can have that awareness. So I'm assuming that there's some listeners that have some awareness and they can tell a point in time, whether it's going to be an hour ago or an hour from now or yesterday, where they were in a reaction.
Uh-huh.
And in that reaction moment, Carla, what are some practical tools that you utilize that you can share that could make a real impact to open up that
Okay.
creativity?
Well, I think s- so. I have like a couple different sets of tools, and I'll just be straightforward that I have worked for many years in the energy codes. It's
Listen.
the energy codes by Dr. Sue Morter, and one of the practices that we do right off the top is called take it to the body. Right. So when something happens and you get triggered, and we try and make these tools usable for in our daily life while we're working or whatever you do, um, it's called take it to the body, right? So, so the first thing is, it's like, okay, well, this person just said this to me, and where do I feel that in my body? Do I feel it in my throat? Do I feel it in my heart? um, you know, Anything. I mean, you have to be somewhat aware of your body. And believe me, there's a lot of people who aren't,
Yeah.
because I'm also a therapist in the Western medical field, and there's plenty of people who aren't. But when you can identify that, it's, each place in our body has an energy value to us. First
Good.
chakra, second chakra, third chakra, fourth chakra, right? Up the line. That's the energy in our system. Um, and when you can identify that, then there's things that you can do. You can do a breath work, just bring breath right to that area. I teach specific ones for the specific chakras. And we talk about building circuits, right? It's like the only reason you're reacting is because maybe you're a little disconnected in that part of the energy in your system. So at least identifying where it is. And then if you can't do the breath work right then no big deal. You can do some deep breaths to at least calm your system down. And then, the other tool I use a lot is tapping. And, I can do that while I'm driving in my car because, the science behind tapping is, if you tap on these acupuncture points, that it will calm your nervous system down. So again, it's all about calming the nervous system down, so you can bring forth the creative energy and creative thoughts that you have, to move forward with grace and ease versus the reactionary, like, um, so those are two. Take it to the body, use your breath. Maybe you can learn about tapping because it's super easy. I can do it in my car. I stopped yesterday with a pretty scenery and I started tapping. Okay, this triggered me, and I gotta calm myself down before I walk into the office. And I did it. And it was awesome. And I think as you do that, you then bring up, it's like, oh, this is why I was triggered. This is where it's coming from. And then you can tap on that. Those are the most things I used. And I've studied a lot, so I know my breath work really easily for me. That's why I want to work with people, because I want them to have those tools as well.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. How do people engage you? Where do people find you? And who are you looking
Well,
for?
I mean, I have a website. I've done some advertisements on Facebook. I haven't done a lot of local advertising. I've done some things like directly with doctors' offices because I've really been wanting people to, let's see what I want to say. I really would like people to engage with me with alternative mental health options,
Yeah.
right? And I've been speaking, like I spoke at the Rotary Club, and it's like I want to talk to those people who think that the stress of life doesn't affect their mental health, and then they suffer in silence. And that suffering may look like, I drink too much, or I smoke too much dope, or I train too hard, all those things that can be accepted in our culture, but could also be a marker for some suffering.
Yeah.
So I went directly to the doctor's offices too. But those are the ways so far. My website, some Facebook advertisements, things like that.
So for the folks that are listening by audio, I'm going to list out Carla's website, and this will also be in the show notes. It's Carla Fanciullo, and it's CarlaFanciullo.com.
Right.
Yeah. And I'd encourage you to check it out. Carla, how about closing thoughts? Like, what are you hoping that your work brings forth in the world for people?
More love. More love for each other, for sure. I think we're kind of in a state of being where there's a lot of confusion. There's part of the world that really wants to open up to love and create sustainable environments, sustainable communities. And then there's a whole nother part of the world that maybe doesn't find that helpful. It's funny, growing up in the 60s, I still hear that thought of it starts with me. It starts with me. And I encourage people to embrace that and, bring their awareness to them. Let go of the thought that if I bring too much awareness to me, I'm being a selfish person. But we have to bring awareness to ourselves, because we have to feel what we're feeling, because we're consistently getting bombarded with messages from the energy field. That is more of the truth than some of, I don't know, the CNBC messaging, right? For lack of a better example.
Beautiful. I really appreciate what you do bring into the world. And I love the fact that you had zero hesitation. More love. Let's bring in more love. And I would agree. It starts with self-love. And as long as my cup is full, then I can start filling up other people's.
Right. Oh, so true. That's a beautiful thought. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah. Carla, I appreciate this conversation. I think there's some good tips and tools for folks and for listeners. And I'll encourage, again, listeners to reach out to Carla and explore some energy medicine. I love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Carla. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. We count on your subscriptions, your likes, your shares, and I encourage you to do that now. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, lower right-hand button. If you're on audio, download this, share it, and we look forward to having you on the next one.